Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology Podcasts with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech Podcast. My guest is Sarah Hill. She is the CEO of a company called Healium. It's spelled Healium, like to heal someone. The website is tryhealium.com. So, Sarah, how are you doing today?
Richard, I'm doing great. It is awesome to be with you here on the Future Tech Podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you. So tell me about Healium. What's the premise of the company?
So Healium are portable digital chill pills that are controlled by your brain and your wearables. So the wearables that capture your heart rate, a brain sensing headband that captures the electrical output of your brain can actually be used to control things inside these virtual and augmented reality environments. So Healium are sold as kits or as libraries. Some hospitals have instituted Healium bars for nurses for compassion fatigue. Any areas of confined stress, situational stress, workplace stress, Healium can provide them 4 minutes of virtual peace, and these experiences are data-driven to see specifically via EEG what they do to different parts of the brain. So that's a very long-winded explanation, but basically Healium are ways that you can quickly get some virtual peace.
So, all right. So it sounds like so looking at the site and all that, it's libraries of virtual content. So I saw one that was a waterfall scene that you can navigate through with your thoughts. Other ones were just out in nature. You're sitting up on top of a mountain, meditating, that kind of stuff. Is that right?
Right. We have some video experiences, and we're getting even more computer-generated experiences that are built inside the game engine. So what the headband is measuring is the output of what's called gamma asymmetry. Gamma asymmetry is associated with feelings of activity. Love, joy, appreciation, openness. And so the headband captures the value of that, and we attach it to a value inside Unity or Unreal Game Engine or with ARKit or an AR Core in an augmented reality environment. And we're actually able to control those environments with your. So the more that gamma activity leans to the left on the forehead, the more you float up the side of a waterfall in virtual reality. The deeper you float inside a fractal. On Healium, you have the ability to change the seasons just with your feelings. So it's kind of like a feeling mirror of sorts, in that we as people who wear wearables have never had the opportunity to see, what our feelings look like, or, much less watch our brainwave patterns in semi-real time from EEG. So it takes that data that's been, sequestered on your wearables and puts it out in front of you and reminds you that your physiology, your heart rate, your brainwave patterns have power to control things, not only in the virtual world, but then again in the real world as well. Healium is not meant to be any kind of replacement for any kind of psychotropic medication. It's not a diagnostic tool. It's a remote control and a self-awareness tool that, the power of your thoughts and emotions to create some real change.
So how, if I put on the headset and I'm using one of your modules and I'm sitting there, like, how do I control the module? Do I just think happy thoughts, or do I think pissed off thoughts, and somehow the module will change and sense what I'm thinking, or how does it work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much when you think different things on an EEG, you see your brainwave patterns react in a certain way. And that question that you asked me of how do I control it is one that only you can answer. I can't tell you, what you need to think to make that bar go up and down. Only you have the ability to discover what that is. So, and it takes some trial and error. It's kind of like riding a bike. And for instance, the first time I tried it, I thought, you know what, I'll think of my, my kids. My kids will make it go up. But it's not always what you think it is. And my kids did not make it go up because, you're worried about, sometimes your kids can make your thoughts stressful. My dog makes it go up. Something that's not necessarily associated with a stressful situation. Obviously, my kids give me great joy, but you have to find out what it is that makes it up, and what it is that makes you and your heart go to that feeling of positivity. So, as an answer to your question, only you can discover what that is, and it's different for every person. Not everyone thinking of their dog is going to have a pleasant experience. Perhaps they've been, bitten by a dog, and perhaps that is not what makes it go up the waterfall. But again, just that self-awareness of that feeling of positivity, and it's the same thing with alpha activity. The more alpha activity you have in your brain, the more feelings of relaxation that you have. So Dr. Jeff Tarrant is a counseling psychologist and a neurofeedback specialist. He wrote the book on neuromeditation, and he talks a lot about in his book about how the different electrical activity of the brain, the more you have one in certain area, are indicative of different feelings. And that's not from his research. That's from research that's, gone on for quite some time about EEG. So we're just taking what we know through research from EEG and attaching it to values in an immersive media environment that allows the user to discover that their thoughts have power. Your heart rate has power. If you lower your heart rate in an experience that will be released soon, you can make the sunshine brighter and illuminate some other planets around you. It's just, again, taking that data from your wearables, putting it in your field of view, and making you self-aware that you have the ability to control your biometrics.
Well, that's the positive side of it, but how often do people use a simulation and they go, nothing's happening, and then they get frustrated, and then the simulation, does it account for negative feelings and frustration and increased heart rate? Do things get darker or more evil, or do they just sit there and not move unless it's positive changes in your physiology?
Yeah, it was specifically designed not to reward or not to go backwards, or not to somehow penalize the individual if they're not making progress. And also inside the app, you have the ability to toggle it individually for what your individual setting is. And everybody's different. Not everybody's, brainwave patterns are set the exact same way. Something that's, a higher threshold for you might be an easier threshold for somebody else. So you have the ability to toggle those settings higher or lower, so you can find what that barometer is. And in fact, in our app, you don't even have to use the headband. You can just be automatically guided through the experience, or you can toggle it all the way down so that it makes it impossible to fail until you learn how to operate it. So it is definitely not meant to reward for any kind of negative behavior, or to be a frustrating experience.
Yeah, but if your thoughts turn negative, what's wrong with it? The scene around you turning a little bit negative, or giving you a warning so that you can change them around and come back to something more positive. Maybe it gets darker, and you realize, okay, that means I'm going the wrong way. Let me take a breather and try to bring it back.
Yeah, absolutely. So I misspoke in telling you that, in that the scenes don't get darker, but if you are not above a certain threshold, the background turns red and the experience stops, and a voice gently comes in and tries to guide you or reminds you to recall a happy memory or to relax, or whatever that prompt or intervention is, in order to go back up through, whether it be the waterfall or to make the seasons change. We have about a dozen different experiences in our app that you can use. So it's just like traditional neurofeedback, in the flat world, except we're taking it inside the virtual and augmented reality worlds and allowing you to see that data displayed right in front of you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So the experience will start with some kind of experience, and then again, you're trying to get people to improve their markers, lower their heart rate, send out more relaxed or happy brain waves, that kind of thing. And then as they do that, they continue through the experience. So I guess that would be a positive feedback loop, a virtuous cycle where they'd feel better and better, right?
Correct. Yeah. And Dr. Terrence is probably the one who can speak deeper dive into the science portion of it. I'm the technologist. We create the technology and the experiences, and Dr. Terran is the one who writes the protocols. And we should have invited him on here because he could go into a really deep dive on the power of having that feedback loop, and to know your barrier on what you need to do in order to be rewarded in that experience.
Well, I mean, you don't need to be a technologist or a scientist to talk about your experience or, what feedback you've gotten from people that have used it. So what does that look like? How did it feel to you when you did it? And what's some feedback you got that piqued your curiosity from users?
Yeah, so we've done a couple published studies actually on how people are have reacted to it. So Frontiers in Psychology and the Journal of Neuroregulation both published recent studies about Healium after a 4-minute experience, and it looked at self-report anxiety, people who have self-reported anxiety, and they ranked on an anxiety scale. And it showed a reduction in that brain stress or the high beta activity, specifically that they were looking at after a 4-minute experience. And then also in the Journal of Neuroregulation, it looked at a group of firefighters and looked at their gamma asymmetry or their feelings of positivity both before and after a healing experience. And in that testing, that used hospital grade EEG, not just a headband, but actually, a full cap with gel and everything to look at all areas of the brain. One thing with the headbands that we're using, and we're hardware agnostic. We use a Muse meditation headband. We have an experience that's coming out with Apple Watch. We use a variety of different hardware, but the headband isn't meant to be diagnostic in any way, or to diagnose you for any condition. It's just meant to be a remote control that you're using your body as a remote control in order to power some of these experiences. And reaction has been some emotional. So for instance, we do a lot of work with veterans and aging veterans in a program that we run called Honor Everywhere, which provides them the virtual tours. But we had the caretaker of one of the veterans who was using Healium. She told us you'll have to assist him with putting the goggles on because he's not able to raise his arms. But, halfway through that experience, he has his arms above his head, trying to reach out for some of the people that he sees in the experience. So that has been some of the reactions. A lot of people tell us they use it for the first time. They didn't know what to think about to make them feel positive, but they really struggled with that. And that simple act, had value for them because it made them realize that perhaps they need to spend a little bit more time recalling some of those memories and storing them away, as you might store away fuel, or something positive to bring out then in a rainy day. So that has been some of the reactions. People tell us they feel more relaxed. Some people tell us in some of the fractal animation, they have almost like a feeling of altered state of consciousness. It's, a variety of different reactions.
So what kind of experiences seem to have better reactions than others? I'm sure you've honed them in over time.
Yeah, and it's been through a series of trial and error. So one of the very first experiences we did was on top of a beautiful bluff. and you're looking out over this bluff, and there's a guided meditation that's coming in, and we thought, wow, this is to us this looks like a really peaceful experience. But when we went and looked at it on uh, via EEG and studying it with data, uh, we found that it didn't hit the mark. And what we realized is that to some people, being on a bluff is inherently stress producing. If you're scared of heights, am I going to fall over the edge? Because it seems like it's real, like you're, on the edge of a bluff. And to some of us, it was like, wow, this is pretty. Look at this, beautiful view. And to others, it invoked a sense of, am I going to fall off this cliff? So there was a great learning experience for us content creators to know, okay, we're choosing some safe places that people can view them.
So, what kind of experiences have you seen have had effects that you didn't anticipate? The bluff is one example. Any others?
Obviously, generally in VR, any kind of movement is not good. You have the potential to make you sick, which you don't want to do. And early on, we had an experience where someone was moving across the screen, but yet the frame was panning itself as well. And that's an unnatural, that's a movement that your body would not actually do in the real world. And they've studied this to show that, if you inside a VR headset, if your body is being moved in a way that is not necessarily natural. So, our body moves up and down naturally. We're fine with that. But when you kind of go backwards or side to side, or in some ways it can actually create poison or get out that poison. And so, we operate from the realm of, trying to make sure that these are experiences that these feel safe. There's, you don't see a whole lot of movement, fast movement in our experiences, or unnatural movement. And that has been some kind of trial and error because as content, creators, we have had some, moments that we've either had to re-edit or take off, completely and retool because in our, assessments, someone has told us it made them feel uncomfortable.
Well, what determines whether you take off an experience or not? One person not liking it, or because something that some people don't like, some people may find fun.
Well, yeah, definitely. It only takes one person to reassess it and look at it again. So we don't need multiple people telling us that something's up. One is enough of a red flag for us to look at it and ensure that we're not causing harm, because certainly, do no harm is that's a mantra of all content creators.
Well, I'm not saying harm, but some experiences, again, some people would really enjoy and some they wouldn't. But if all your experiences are completely sanitized, where only everyone likes them, you'll miss out on the really strong emotional responses to stuff. Like someone may love to be in an experience where there's all these like laughing babies, in a happy nursery, and someone may be stressed out about that. Or someone may want to watch, a boxing match, for instance, and it gets them excited and happy, and someone else may be like, oh, I don't like this, it's violence. So I would think it would constrain you on the variation of experiences you could have if everyone has to be happy with a given experience.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say everyone has to be happy with a given experience. Semantically, we have a very low tolerance for making people sick. So it's not a matter of preference, do they like it or not. We take it very seriously if someone, tells us that one of their experiences makes them feel uncomfortable physically, like I'm going to vomit. Obviously you're going to have preferences between a variety of people for what they like and don't like. And as content creators, you have to straddle that balance. So I'm not saying that, we sanitize all of our experiences to make everybody happy. I'm saying that because people aren't just watching this media, they're feeling it. We have to be very careful about what we put on their bodies. And with VR, you are essentially, putting it right in front of them. You're placing them into an experience and allowing them to live it. So I hope that clarifies. Certainly not saying everything you create has to be make people happy. I'm talking specifically about a comfort level of motion and motion sickness, because as you know, that's a real concern in our industry.
Well, what's your end goal? Is it to teach people how they can train their own brain to make themselves feel better in the face of anxiety or adversity when they're not using the headset? Or is it just to give people a pleasant experience? Or like, because there's a lot of ways you could use this. I could see that,
And as simply as that, to allow people to become more self-aware of what some of their feelings look like, and to see them for the very first time, and to know that their thoughts have the potential to change their physiology and their outlook on life, making people more aware of perhaps a memory that has the ability to make someone feel better, so that then they have that memory to hide away when they don't have the goggles, or they don't, in augmented reality, have a phone that they can, put 3D asset on their desk and manipulate. Again, self-awareness, pieces of guided imagery that they can squirrel away for a time that perhaps isn't so pleasant.
Okay. I can tell you one simulation that won't help anybody. If you had the one where they watch the evening news, I can guarantee you that that wouldn't make anyone feel better. So you could avoid that one.
Yeah. And certainly, a media diet is balanced, just like a physical diet is balanced. You have to make sure that you have nutritious things on your plate. And if all you're pouring into yourself are things that you see in your social media feed, that I guarantee those kind of things can make you sick. I sat by a police scanner as a journalist. We covered a lot of trauma, reported about a lot of trauma, the aftermath of the tsunami, rapes, murders. And, you listen to a police scanner for, 20 years, that affects a person. And you really have to stop and take time to pour positive things, into yourself, and fill your cup with things that, aren't that, or it can have a direct impact on your physiology. You see that not only in journalists, and I was certainly in that category, but police officers, nurses for compassion fatigue, individuals, they're going from trauma to trauma to trauma, and don't always have the opportunity to close their eyes or take a meditation class, or anything like that. So these are just some self-awareness tools that says, hey, here's some virtual peace. Here's the ability to see your feelings and to become, self-aware that they can control things in the virtual world, just like they can control things in the real world as well.
Well, very good. So what's the best way for people to try this out? Because I'm sure there's a high curiosity factor here. I'd like to try it too. So, what are some resources for people to get in contact or try Healium? And that's, I guess, the website, tryhealium.com, right?
Yeah, Healium, tryhealium.com, and you'll see explanations. You'll see some studies on there. If you have a Muse meditation headband, you can test drive some of the experiences on our existing app. We have some augmented reality experiences that will be coming out for Apple Watch, and also for Muse as well on iOS, and eventually on Android as well. So certainly check out the demo app. We also have a pro app for enterprise customers. So a lot of corporate wellness programs are using Healium in their relaxation rooms and in their virtual rooms to try to give their employees a bit of virtual peace. Also, if you have additional questions, you can just email hello@story-up.com. Again, these aren't just experiences. There's actually stories that are woven into some of the different ones.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, I appreciate coming on the podcast, and it's interesting and important work you're doing. So we'll have to all check it out.
Richard, I appreciate the time, and it's always fascinating to listen to some of the great creators are talking about on your podcast. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
No problem.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.